The western part of France looks like Scotland, the eastern part looks like Germany, the southern part looks like Italy, and the northern part looks like Belgium. And in the middle, you have a vast middle that doesn't look like anything. Okay, how can you define yourself? It's very difficult.
Would you be our guide for visiting France with the people who would like to travel here and have your tips?
First, do not wear shorts unless you're under 30, okay?
We are the most visited country in the world.
Welcome to À la Française, the podcast that shines a light on the French art of living and those who shape it. François Sureau, good afternoon. Hello. Thank you for being here. You're one of the famous French writer, let's say, but not only a writer, but we're going to take the time to discover yourself and discover your perspective about the French culture and the French lifestyle through your various experiences. Let's speak a little bit about yourself first.
Is it absolutely necessary?
Oh yeah, I think everybody wants to get to know you.
I'll try.
Where did you grow up?
Actually, I grew up in Paris. A lot of people here that live in Paris or come from usually distant backgrounds, what we call the province, regions and so on. I grew up in Paris. The family of my mother has been living in Paris since the 16th century. It seems that for me, Paris is like a village. It's more than my hometown. It's my more than simply my birthplace. And on my father's side, we immigrated from the western part of France at the time of the French Revolution, and then settled down in Paris and its immediate surroundings. So I have almost no provincial connections. So I grew up there in the 8th arrondissement of Paris, which is Paris is divided in arrondissements, and every arrondissement has its lifestyle and its ways. The 8th arrondissement is not the aristocratic part as the 7th or the 6th arrondissement, and or the 4th, Marais. It's the place where people who made fortunes during the beginning of the 19th century came. So it's the place where Marcel Proust lived, and Caillebotte, and the famous French painter and art collector, and this was my place between the big Haussmannian boulevards and the Cathedral of Saint Augustin, which is a replica of the Basilica of Saint Sophie in Istanbul, strangely enough, created by Gustave Eiffel, the same man who made the Tour Eiffel.
Saint Augustin?
Saint Augustin was designed and built by Gustave Eiffel at the end of the 19th century. So this is really my place.
Okay. So we would like to focus on one aspect of your life, which is when you belong to the Légion étrangère. So the foreign legion, as we can translate in English, of which you say that it is part of the legionary legend, as the traditional song attests, to gather the great and the anonymous, the princes, the ruined café owners, the notaries in flight. So first of all, when did you engage in the Légion étrangère?
I enlisted in the reserves, what's called here operational reserve of the Foreign Legion at the end of the 20th century. So I served first in Yugoslavia, then Cambodia, then Africa a few times, and 3 tours in Afghanistan. It's a lot of American people know what the Foreign Legion is about because of Hollywood, actually. Incredible number of movies of the 30s about the Foreign Legion. And also it has quite a huge reputation, professionally speaking, among the soldiers.
Can you just recap what's so different with the Foreign Legion compared to regular army?
It's the word you use is the right one, because we usually speak about people being non-foreign. You know, as people speak about non-Jews, for example, goyim. No? We speak about in the army. We speak about people not belonging to the Foreign Legion as la régulière, the regulars, because we take a huge pride in being the irregulars. So that's the idea. At first, it was, just a word about history. It was created in 1831 by King Louis Philippe, just to enlist a lot of people that were after the revolutions in France, doing nothing and rioting and pillaging and looting everything in the suburbs of Paris. So he decided to create the Foreign Legion, whatever the nationality of these people was, and to give them a second chance. And this idea of a second chance is very much at the heart of the Foreign Legion. So during the times, Foreign Legion enlists non-French people, that's a requirement, non-French people, and asks them to carry arms and fight for France. And so during the course of time, we have people coming from, all the civil unrests, all wars, all things like that enlist in the Foreign Legion. For example, we had a lot of Spaniards who were Republican at the time of Franco, and when they lost their civil war, they enlisted in the Foreign Legion. And after that, we had a lot of Jews from Central Europe at the time of the beginning of the Nazism. We had a lot of Germans, anti-Nazi democratic Germans. For example, in my regiment, after the Falklands, we had a lot of Britons who wanted to enlist because they didn't want really very good soldiers, professional soldiers that did not want to go to Ireland for any reason, and thought that they couldn't fight well, if I may say so, inside the British Army. At the time, France was heavily engaged in Africa, so they enlisted in the Foreign Legion for that reason. So the recruitment in Foreign Legion follows the path of international crisis and civil unrests everywhere. A very good American poet called Alan Seeger, had a rendezvous with death, a very well-known poem in the United States, enlisted in the Foreign Legion and died at the Bois Belleau. You have now a U.S. warship called the Bois Belleau, and died at the Bois Belleau in 1915. Nicolas de Stael, the famous painter, enlisted in the Foreign Legion in the 40s. So did Cole Porter, the jazzman, or Hans Hartung, the great painter, or Blaise Cendrars, who was a magnificent French poet, and he was Swiss and enlisted in the Foreign Legion for that. So you had also this type of
what was their motivation?
Well, because they wanted to fight for France, because for them France meant the cause of freedom. But they could not fight for France in the regular army, because in the regular army you have to be a French national to get enlisted, and they could not do that. So they chose the Foreign Legion for that precise reason. And you have also people. There's a famous song of the Foreign Legion about that, who have failed in their previous life, who went bankrupt, who I remember, if I have the time for a small anecdote,
yes,
I remember that I was with my regiment in Cambodia at the time of the United Nations Organization for the Reconstruction of Cambodia in 1991. And I was there and sitting in a small village called Kompong Trak. It was just near the Vietnamese border. And I was there reading a book near the fire. And then comes a private, second-class, normal, basic legionnaire, huge guy with tattoos everywhere, looking like a real beast. And I was reading a book, a novel by Valérie Larbaud, which is very, it's a third-rate, it's a writer for writers, in France.
So you even remember the book that you were reading at this time?
Of course, but you will understand why in a few seconds. So I was reading that book, and this huge guy, looking like Rambo in Rambo 3, comes and sit by me and say, what are you reading? And I said, I'm reading Valérie Larbaud. And then he said, what, Valérie Larbaud? I give the name of the book. The title was Femina Marquez. And he recites me by heart the last lines of Femina Marquez. So I look at him, and he say, you can ask, because there is a very, very strict rule in the Foreign Legion that you don't ask people what they did
background.
before, because a lot of people have done strange things before. So I asked him, and he tells me I was a teacher in the university. Specialized in French literature, and how come you're there now? And I say, well, I was married, I had 3 kids, I didn't like my life, and one day I went by to buy matches, and it was 10 years ago, I never came back, and then he walks away. That's a very typical typical of Foreign Legion story. There is a tradition in the Foreign Legion, which is, you have 183 nationalities inside, represented inside. You can, of course, you enlist being French, but then you are given another identity, a false passport, forged by the state for the purpose of you serving in the Foreign Legion, and with a different nationality. For example, most French enlist under, pretend being Canadians or Swiss.
So nobody has a French passport.
Nobody, it's except the officers, of course. But the private doesn't have a French passport. So there is a tradition with it, 188 different nationalities. All religions represented, all beliefs, but there is one very strong tradition inside the Foreign Legion, except tradition of the fight at Cameron in Mexico, which is the landmark of the Foreign Legion history. And this tradition is the crèche de Noël. I don't even know how to say crèche in English. It's a very French thing. It's a small replica of Bethlehem at the time of the birth of Christ. So it's a small replica, and every year the légionnaires create a crèche de Noël. Sometimes these crèches are absolutely huge. I mean, huge, meters, like in Naples, huge crèche and so on. And there is a concours de crèche, competition for the best crèche. They prepare it 1 month in advance, and then the generals, the colonels, all the people said, well, this is the first prize, the second, the third prize, and so on. And so I was a member of this commission of the pricing of the crèche de Noël, and I went around the different regiments. And in Paris, the crèche which we gave to this crèche the first prize. This crèche had been created by 3 people. One guy who deserted from Hezbollah in Lebanon, one guy who deserted from Tzahal in Israel, and the third guy was a French owner of the restaurant who went bankrupt because his wife left him 2 years ago. Okay, these 3 people together created the best crèche de Noël. That's very much a Legion-like story.
So what you're telling must be very interesting for our audience, which is mainly American. And you know how the army is central and predominant in their culture and plays a big role in their imagination. In France, it's quite different. It seems like the military has disappeared from the contemporary local landscape, except for one particular day, which is July the 14th, and La Fête Nationale, so the National Day, July the 14th. It seems that you love this date.
Well, I don't. I love the date, but I don't like the défilé. Maybe I can explain why.
Oh, yeah.
But before that, relations between France and the army are very complicated. I think that something has to do first with the very strong political divide between the Frenchmen, the left and the right. I mean, the left doesn't like the army because they always suspect that the army will make someday a coup d'etat, and they have grounds to think about that because, after all, that what Napoleon Bonaparte did and ended the revolutionary period. And after that, Napoleon III, and after that, Maréchal Pétain in the 40s, and even General de Gaulle in 58, that was not that simple. So there is a strong reluctance. You know, half of France is from the left. If I'm so, this half doesn't really like the army, except for periods where the fate of the nation as a whole seems to be at stake, like in beginning of the First World War, for example, or where everyone, including, of course, the left, but even the people, even the anarchists, enlisted and fought very bravely for France. But except for these periods, the army is a complex political object for the French who are leftists. So that's that's probably one of the reasons why we're not sure that everybody likes it. The second reason is that how can I put that? The First World War was absolutely horrible. I mean, we lost an incredible number of people, 1.5 million over a population of 40. The German lost 2 million over a population of 80. It's not exactly the same thing as the. And we finally won with the help of the United States and the British, of course. But it left a very strong sense of disillusion and unease about war as a whole, which explains probably the way in which France was defeated in the 40s. And after that, you had the defeat of the 40s, largely caused by the technical inadequacy of high French command at the time. And after that, you had the colonial wars. Indochina were the French. There was no draft at the time of the Indochina, but there was a draft in Algeria, and almost like 200,000 young French people fought in Algeria. It was exactly the same thing for us that Vietnam in the United States, and this caused a sense of estrangement with the military. You know, fighting, losing wars, and doing morally disputable wars, like in Algeria, just like in the Vietnam, for example. To take this comparison that I think that most of our American viewers could understand. And after that, the government decided to put an end to the draft, to the military service, which was maybe the only place in France where people from different social backgrounds, different types of education could meet and appreciate their singularities and valor. So all of that says that France has certainly an appetite for military glory of the past, some sort of disillusion towards the army, and absolutely no familiarity whatsoever since the draft was suppressed. And that explains what you describe as a form of estrangement between France and its army nowadays. So, of course, there's an exception, which is the défilé du 14 juillet. And I think
people seem to be very proud of celebrating July 14th.
Yes, it includes a large part of nostalgia because all these regiments, France is like maybe a little bit like the United States, but it's a more ancient country, maybe more like Britain. The regiments who parade on the Champs-Élysées the day of the 4th of July are very ancient regiments who, for certain of these regiments, have started fighting in the 16th century, like the Premier Régiment d'Infanterie, for example. So it's some sort of recapitulation of all the glories of French military past, and I think that people are sensitive to that. Also because in my generation, the draft was suppressed, but in every French family, you have people who fought into either Algeria, Indochina, it's more rare, but Algeria, and certainly Second World War and First World War when I was young. So there is a souvenir of all that. It includes a large part of nostalgia. I don't like the défilé, what the défilé has become, for one simple reason. It stopped to be the défilé of the armed forces to be the défilé of every people in uniform. And for a guy who served in the Foreign Legion, seeing in the same ranks and the same parade cops, penitentiary personnel, and the customs, along with the soldiers, is absolutely unbearable. And it's absolutely unbearable for simple reasons. It's the missions of these people are different. Of course, they all wear a uniform, but the missions are different. The mission of a soldier is to consider the nation as a whole and fight for its enemy aliens, against the enemy aliens. The work, the mission of the customs or of the police or whatever is not to fight, but to uphold the law, even against French nationals. So the mission is quite different. And year after year, the 14 Juillet tends to be the parade of social order, of the bourgeois social order. I mean, all the watchdogs in uniform, preserving the institutions as they are, which was not the case in the beginning.
So you're not bothered by the fact of celebrating our army and our past,
but not at all.
By the evolution,
but the evolution
of what it became
of the compositions of the forces that take part into the défilé itself. I mean, they have nothing to do with it. One day you will see the prosecutors in their robes, and the other day I don't know what.
And do you celebrate the July 14th yourself? Do you have any anecdotes to share with us?
No, I did not. I've never. It's a regret. I've never took part in the parade, and I went into there's some sort of military tribune, and so I went there a few times just to see the soldiers. The anecdotes, I have two anecdotes about parades, such as this one. The first is the défilé du 14 Juillet is of course it's a great moment, but the greatest moment is not the défilé; it's the day before the défilé. And if I have an advice to American viewers, is to go to Paris on the 12th or the 13th of July and wake up at 4 o'clock and be at 5 o'clock in the Champs-Élysées. And then you will see the parade with absolutely no public, no government, no president, no one. They're rehearsing the parade. And it's absolutely beautiful with the
very good tip.
The daylights come to you, and some absurd people coming out of nightclubs and looking at these soldiers marching on the Champs-Élysées with absolutely no fioriture, with absolutely no there's absolutely no sign of political kitsch. It's only the soldiers. That's very great. And I've participated in only one défilé in a place where my regiment was. It was the 11 November, which is the date of the end of the First World War, in Sedan, which is a place where France was beaten in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870, and then was nearly beaten also in 1914, and then was definitely beaten in 1940. So it's very, very loaded with French history and also French defeat, and it was the 60th anniversary of the end of the First World War. So it was the November 11th, 1978, and the colonel had found that in some barracks were stored uniforms of the First World War. So I participated in the défilé wearing the very famous, blue coat with the blue helmet and this huge rifle with a huge bayonet called La Rosalie. It was very strange. It was also very strange because a lot of people there in the public had fought during the First World War. I mean, it was only 60 years after, so the people who were drafted at the end of the war were aged 80 or 85. So they were, and you know what? They didn't like it. They thought that we were too it was too theatrical.
But to be complete enough, July the 14th is the parade, but it's also a great French celebration. In every village of France, you have a bal populaire. In every village,
with
you have fireworks. So it's a big French traditional celebration.
Yeah, it is. It's recent. It's recent. It was created actually 1 century after exactly 1 century after the French Revolution. It was created on the 14th of July. 1889 for the first time. So it's rather recent, actually. And it's more or less maybe like the 4th of July, something very Republican, something in that sense more political than having something to do with the military. It's the celebration of the Republic.
Let's speak a little bit about the French culture and the French art de vivre, art of living. Let's hear about your perspective. What defines to you the French character?
It's very difficult. The first thing I would say is that first, let's say goodbye to things that define the French character until 40 or 50 years ago. I mean, French politeness that doesn't exist anymore. You know that Melbourne, who was the Prime Minister of Queen Victoria at the beginning of the 19th century, escaped from England just to go to Paris, and he said to hear on the boulevards the beautiful music of the sorry, pardon me, excuse me, because it was the only European capital that he could hear phrases like that. It's not at all the case. I mean, it has vanished. I'm sure that it has also vanished in Great Britain or Germany or whatever, but it has vanished. So
education.
Yeah, well, this way of being polite and not impose upon people or have strong opinions about anything. My father had an anecdote I like very much. It's about the I do not know if I can translate it exactly. It's during the wars between France and Germany and Austria in the middle of the 18th century. So the French sent a spy, and the spy is an aristocrat who poses as a peasant. So he's there in the middle of the German camp, and there's a lot of mud because it's raining all over the place. And then comes a carriage, beautiful carriage, with a very, very prominent German lady that wants to visit the German general. And so the German lady gets off the carriage and slips into the mud. And then this guy, posing as the peasant, of course, immediately retrieves the old habits of the court and present his arm so that she doesn't fall in the mud, revealing that he's not at all a peasant, but a French aristocrat. And of course, he's caught, he's sentenced to death, and he's shot. And at the time he's shot, the last line of this novel, who is a novel of the 19th century, the last line of this novel, which my father liked a lot, was Français léger, dit quelqu'un. I mean, superficial Frenchmen, these guys would prefer death to show that they do the proper thing than to the mission they had initially, being a spy and do not reveal one's identity. All that has entirely disappeared. So I don't know exactly how can...
So far you just said that the French character was so unpolite, Well,
Yep.
uh, well, we would like to
They
be a
had
little bit more positive, maybe, about ourselves.
no, but I have something to say that I could not live elsewhere. You know, I must say that, as was French writer said, foreign parts or foreign parts of, or some sort of France without charm, inhabited by language teachers. So I would not live elsewhere, but it doesn't make me blind about. So that's the first thing. The people who come to France have to, you know, they're not coming to the France of Voltaire and King Louis. No, all that's over. Okay. Second thing, it's also a country in which people like ideas. I mean, people like. I'm talking about nowadays Frenchmen. They fight upon opinions, totally contrary to the British, who do not seem to praise intelligence. And when you can hear sentences as MacGregor, we thought that he was an absolute fool, but we were wrong. He played very well for Cambridge last year. He said you could not listen to such phrases in France. So people like opinions, like ideas, debates. I remember when I was in Afghanistan, we were fighting alongside a very famous American unit called the 27th Mountain Division. And also at night we gathered in the mess and discussing about and we're asking the American officers, why are we there actually? And they said, well, we're there because the 11th of September, we're there to end terrorism and to fight for democracy. And you, why are you there? And the answers of my comrades are, well, because it's more fun to be here than to be in a garrison in Paris, because we like medals, and because we want to be there with our friends. But we don't have great political views about that. It's not generally true. Frenchmen have a lot of political views. The third thing about French character is that a total awareness about what they are, unawareness about what they are. They're blind about what they are. They don't see what's good in them, and they praise things that they think are absolutely great and actually which are not. For example, we take a lot of pride into our state, the greatness of our great civil servants. We have globally an inefficient state. We have been having one until the end of the 19th century. And we don't like, for example, industry and people who make money that much. But we had incredible achievements in that field, from Saint-Gobain to Eiffel and to a lot of things like that. And the Crédit Lyonnais was once the first bank in the world. But we don't like it. We don't like it. We don't. It's very paradoxal. French like things in which they praise figures which they should not praise, and ignore or dislike figures they could like. It's very strange. So this kind of blindness is there's also another thing, which is and that's maybe the most serious thing to say. But it's very difficult. I think that the French do not like to be defined as French, because in the heart of every Frenchman, except if he's really stubborn, like French redneck, France is the essence of France is to care about something than France. That's the essence of France. In a way, like it's the essence of the United States of America. The United States of America, you're not proud to be an American because you're proud to be an American and live between Nebraska and Arkansas. You're proud to be an American because it's a safe haven for all the people who were persecuted along the years, and because of the country of freedom. I remember how deep I was moved the first time I stood the Statue of Liberty. And this is what's about America. Being an American is not just trying to convert the whole world to the eating of McDonald's and drinking Coca-Cola. It's about this dream of humanity freed from ancient quarrels of the political inefficiency of Europe, freed from and free to live. I remember I've always been very moved by the phrases the Americans recite when they get the American nationality. I praise allegiance to the flag of the United States and to all it stands for. Unity. There's something about under God and with freedom and justice for all. With freedom and justice for all. It's nothing to do about the turkey or Peter Stuyvesant. Liberty and justice for all. It's beautiful. There is something in common between the French and the Americans in that regard. As stated in the beautiful first declaration of the in our Bill of Rights of 98, France convinced that the fact of forgetting the basic human rights and natural rights of man is the only source of corruption of government, has decided to expose them to the world. It's absolutely mad position, politically speaking. But I like that. And I think that a lot of Frenchmen, except maybe the very traditional Frenchmen, a lot of Frenchmen share that view that being really French is to care about something else than France. And this is why also I personally prefer in the figures of the great French statesmen, the statesmen who reconciled the ethnical past of France, being a Catholic country under the kings and the medieval ages and the beautiful architecture and whatsoever, and then the revolution, and then what we did after the revolution, all this creating a unique history with its failures and its accomplishments, which is very paradoxical and very original, and that we hope that give a view of what being a man can be, a view that we would very much resent that it did not exist anymore. It's like if we were witness to. In very famous poet called Charles Péguy said he talks about God. I mean, he takes the place of God, and God says, there are some things I do. If the French did not exist, nobody could understand them. Which goes both ways, of course, and explain at the same time victories or achievements and incredible defeats. And I think this paradox is the very, very much felt. And the French do not stop. It's even a political debate here. Never stop of arguing about what is it exactly to be French. The question you raised to me is exactly the same question that the French raised between themselves. It's quite simple after all. Maybe I will shock some people, but it's quite simple. I mean, when you're a Briton, you know that you're a Briton. I mean, you're born in this island or whatever. I mean, it's an island, it's England, nobody doubts about it. So Churchill didn't doubt a second what being an Englishman would mean. It's the same thing with Germany. I mean, Germany, you're a German. I mean, you can pretend sometimes that some Turks can become Germans, but in the bottom of your heart, you don't believe it for a minute, okay? It's not the same thing here. I mean... geographically, it's not even the same thing. I mean, the western part of France looks like Scotland, the eastern part looks like Germany, the southern part looks like Italy, and the northern part looks like Belgium. And in the middle, you have a vast middle that doesn't look like anything. Okay, but how can you define yourself? It's very difficult.
But you're quite severe about the French character. Let me quote something you said.
I like that. I like that. I very much, and I think that a lot of Frenchmen are like me. There's one thing I dislike in other people. It's the way they praise themselves for what they are. I mean, I find it very barbaric. But what I like about the French, that they're not so sure. I like that. It's always very funny when a lot of people say how arrogant they are. I mean, I think that when they're arrogant, it's not because the only way, like, for example, Villepin at the time of the war, Iraq, in the United Nations,
who was a prime minister,
who was Minister for Foreign Affairs, who declared solemnly that France will not accept to participate in the first coalition to fight in Iraq. And it was qualified and criticized as a very arrogant position, especially in Anglo-Saxon countries, and especially in the United States. It was not arrogant because he thought that French was over everything. In this speech, by the way, he specifically mentioned the fact that his own country has been defeated and occupied by the enemy. But he was speaking about something else, principles, like some sort of layman Vatican.
And do you think that's he was a voice of the French character? Do you think he was very French? Yeah.
And also the fact that there are also two other things that you also tell me that it's not very positive, but to me it is. Because it's medication against excessive self pride, which is horrible among nations. I very much dislike it. So I think I think that's this part of the French character actually I like.
I am Sureau. Who would you see sitting on your seat on this À la Française podcast?
I would see my own husband, François Sureau, because he really imagines he's not French at all. He's very different from all the French. He criticizes the French all day long. He insults the French all day long. He'd rather live in the past. He is a man of the past, he believes. And I have never, ever seen an iconic Frenchman like him. And it makes me laugh. I've been married for more than 30 years, I think, and it makes me laugh to tears to see him believe he isn't French. And I can't be, and I would like you to ask him, how can one be so French?
So that's the question you would ask him. How can one be so French?
One can be so French by the fact that I have very strong idea that being French is not being French profoundly. It's what I like about French character. Being French actually does not consist in change oneself into some sort of tourist bureau of French superiority. I think that being French is to look a very complex history for what it is, full of paradoxes, and prefer it to the legends. A lot of people talk about their own country. And this is what I like. But by criticizing the French, I think it's the only way to be French. The second reason about the question is that I think that if you're sensitive enough, the only thing that makes you suffer is your own country, not the other countries. You suffer from your own country. If you like your country, the suffering that your own country gives you, the only way to deal with it is to take some distance. Because otherwise it would be overwhelmed by grief against, in the proportion that you love your country.
Back to what you were saying earlier, and you were accurately comparing the French character with the Americans, and one big difference.
I would say, it's something of my generation. But I like very much movie quotings, and there's a movie quoting I very much like. It's in Rambo 1. I don't know if you've seen Rambo 1. Very good movie. But the second and third are very much, but the one is incredible. And this guy Rambo, who was a veteran, I mean, had done incredible things, Congressional Medal of Honor, Purple Hearts, whatever, Navy Cross, I don't know what. And then he does horrible things, and he's finally sentenced to jail. And his officer comes to see him and say, "Why did you do that? Don't you like your country?" And there's a sign, because the guy has ruined absolutely a village, killed policemen, whatever. And with his incredible voice, I could not dare to imitate, Stallone says, "Don't like my country, I'll die for it."
So you said in L'Or du Temps, which is one of your books, the French commemorate the victories of those who do not resemble them and celebrate their legends. Motionless, they excel in believing themselves the brothers of those who have departed. And you also say they witnessed the evolution of the great captains of industry, that was you said earlier, before their bankruptcy, of politicians before their fall, imagining they share a bit of common nature with them, which allows them to boast of their success, but not all, which allows them to dismiss, trample, and tear them apart without feeling guilty. Is it really the summary of the French?
Well, I think that I would correct these sentences that I wrote. I think it's the.
This is a translation of what you wrote in English.
No. But the translation is absolutely accurate. I mean, I would correct the original sentence. I think it's the. Now I think that it's common ground to every people. I mean, third-rate politicians, American, talked about Lincoln or Adams II. I mean, they have nothing in common with him. And it's. I always, and this is whatever my love for France or my intimate friendship with other countries such as the United States or Great Britain, which keeps me apart from nationalism, is that I've always been very, in a way, shocked by the way that mediocre folks as ourselves take pride into the incredible individual trajectories of people who sometimes were disliked by their country at the time that they wrote. For example, you see all youngsters like the poet Rambo, for example, and they think that, or people say, and the average racist French guy who says, I mean, we're the country of Victor Hugo and they only produce palm trees. I mean, did you write the poems of Victor Hugo? Probably not. And probably at the time of the Victor Hugo, you would have sentenced him to prison. It's paradoxal because I very much love my country, but I dislike nationalist legends. What I like also about France is that it's something that I like, and maybe that's part of the French character we're talking about. What I like is the French people take pride also, and maybe more, in their defeats. I like that. Cyrano de Bergerac, which is Cyrano de Bergerac is the extraordinary. It's one of the famous theatrical pieces in France, and everybody goes and knows and recites Cyrano de Bergerac, and it's the story of a loser. I mean, the guy is an incredible poet, but he fails to conquer the woman he loves. He wrote love letters for the guy who will finally be about to marry the girl, and then he fights against the Spaniards at the end of the 17th century, and then he doesn't win, and then he's crippled, and then he dies miserably by receiving some sort of brick on the head. But he does that with incredible allure, I mean, grandeur, and the French like that. For example, I think that no other country could have given a promotion of officers' university at Saint-Cyr, like Annapolis in the United States or West Point. Yeah. We gave the name of a promotion. The name was Dien Bien Phu. I mean, a defeat a defeat, but it was a glorious defeat. I like that.
Would you be our guide for visiting France with the people who would like to travel here and have your tips? So imagine you're visiting France for the first time. Where would you take us at first?
I would like to give some advice about first. Do not wear shorts unless you're under 30. Okay, this is absolutely horrible. I mean, people do not wear shorts. Do not carry bottles of water. I mean, this is not the Sahara. I mean, you can stop by any cafe and ask for a glass of water, but do not carry bottles of water. Do not carry stupid belts in which you put your money. So behave exactly the way you did when you were at home. I don't know where in the United States.
Just tourists wear belts and wear shorts in Paris.
Voilà.
So,
no, be as
normal.
Because at the end of the Bonfire of the Vanities, the movie, is extraordinary by Morgan Freeman, which plays the part of a judge, makes a sermon to the crowd. It was a horrible crowd with very, very bad manners, and he say, "Well, now go home and be decent people." Okay, it's the same thing. Come at our place and be decent people. Of course, we cannot avoid that you wear these horrible baseball caps that everybody wears in the United States.
So this is allowed.
But even our people wear that, which is absurd because we don't play baseball. And okay, that's absurd. But so we cannot forbid you to wear the caps. But please don't wear shorts. That's the first thing. And since you've respected this first prerequisite, then I will tell you about the places you can go in, because I would not like to be a cause of a moral scandal among my countrymen.
Okay, so where would you take us?
No, you're also, I have to say that you can do whatever you want. I mean, I'm a Frenchman of the past in a way. So now nobody cares about that anymore. You mean take in Paris or outside Paris?
Up to you, France.
First Paris, then outside Paris. Okay. First in Paris, a lot of places to go, but I would like it. Maybe it would be a little bit a funeral visit, but you have to visit the cemetery of Père Lachaise. I mean, it's like I remember the emotion I had the first time I visited Arlington in Washington. Arlington looks very much more than the Père Lachaise military cemetery, and it's a great state cemetery, a national cemetery. Père Lachaise is not like that, but I had a sense of when I went to America the first time, I had a simple sense of what America was about in Arlington, in seeing the Statue of Liberty and one or two other places, and Yellowstone National Park, because for me America was above all nature, and this nature was absolutely incredible. So if you come to Paris, of course you will see Notre Dame, whatever, which is not the most beautiful cathedral in France. I mean, the most beautiful cathedral in France is Strasbourg, which is absolutely incredible. For me, the more poetic and incredible. So you have to visit places where people don't usually go to. You have to visit the cimetière du Père Lachaise, because it's huge, and you have all the great writers, and it's calm and it's quiet. It's like a huge garden with it's with some small hills. In the middle of which the tombs are put, and so it's rather beautiful. I would very much advise to see the Invalides, because it's a beautiful, absolutely beautiful monument, or the Hôpital du Val-de-Grâce, which is.
Do you think this can be visited? The Val-de-Grâce?
The Val-de-Grâce, yeah, you can, yeah. It's not easy. The Invalides, it's very
open
easy.
to the public.
But the Val-de-Grâce is open to the public. But you have to push a button. Someone will open. What do you want to do? I want to visit, and they will.
Okay.
They
let
will,
you in.
They will let you in. And very few people know that it's possible to visit the Val-de-Grâce. Places like that. Outside Paris, I would recommend two places very, very different which are the first, the castle of Lichtenberg in Alsace. It's in the Bas-Rhin near Haguenau. It's a huge castle in red rock, like the Cathedral of Strasbourg. Medieval castle, absolutely enormous, and it's very representative of the French paradox, because it goes back to the medieval ages, where Alsace was not even French, but German. Well, but not German, because Germany did not exist at the time, but part of the German world, if I may say so. And so you have this huge castle, and at the time of the Revolution, the people simply engraved on the front door, "à la raison," to reason. So it's the history of France. I mean, the first part with glory, dream, the quest of the Grail, and so on, and profound forests, and then "à la raison," the siècle des Lumières, the great writers, and so on. And the other is Fontenay. Fontenay is a cloister, an abbey in Burgundy, which is that you can visit now. There are no more monks in it, dating back to Bernard de Clairvaux. It's a Cistercian abbey, absolutely beautiful. And this is France. This is France. People, people think, a lot of people. I mean, of course, there are a lot of clichés. It's very difficult to avoid the clichés about France. The baguette, the béret. There's a beautiful quote in a book by André Mauroy called "The Silence of Colonel Rambo." It takes place in the First World War, and Mauroy was an officer seconded to as an interpreter to a Scottish regiment somewhere in Flanders. So he's there at the mess, and one officer, British officer called Major Parker, who was obviously very anti-French, comes and says, it's in the middle of horrible, we're shelling all, battlefield of the northern part of France. And Parker says, Aurel, it's the name of the French interpreter, I was very surprised this morning because it was Sunday. And in the horrible landscape, then there was the bells of the church, and we saw all the people who had survived with clothing for Sunday coming out, one after the other, out of their ruined houses to go to church, and it was like a theater. Why did you not tell us that before the war? And Aurel says, because we didn't know about it. It's not the French cancan. Yeah,
so you were mentioning mostly outside the beaten path places that you share is the Cimetière du Père Lachaise, places in Alsace, Abbaye de Fontenay, where people don't go. That is not probably their first choice. The three main monuments in Paris are La Tour Eiffel, Versailles, Le Louvre, maybe Musée d'Orsay. And then if they go outside of Paris, they would go to Provence and to the French Riviera.
They're wrong. I mean, also I dislike museums. I've always been disliking them. It's absolutely horrible. Imagine, I'm a writer. I love literature. I spend my life in literature. Imagine that you put you in a place like that and we say, well, now you're going to read 50 masterpieces in the course of 75 hours. You say, you're totally mad. That's what a museum is about. You go to the Musée du Louvre and you see 10 paintings. I mean, no. So you can go to the Musée du Louvre to see one painting, work on it before, think about it before, look at it in the internet, and then when you're in Paris, you decide to take 1 hour to see this painting. But visiting the Musée du Louvre is just as absurd as sitting in a place and reading for 3 days all the plays by Shakespeare. I mean, it's absurd, totally absurd. The Musée d'Orsay is the same thing. Versailles is the palace of the bourgeois gentilhomme. There's one beautiful castle to see in France, much more beautiful than Versailles, which is Vaux-le-Vicomte, the extraordinary place created by the Minister of Finance of Louis the XIV, who was Nicolas Fouquet. That's beautiful. That's unheard of. The Galerie des Glaces is like Germany. Versailles looks like Schönbrunn or Herrenchiemsee. It's absolutely horrible. When at the end of the first Franco-Prussian War, the German Empire was proclaimed in the Galerie des Glaces, and it was horrible. How come they dared proclaim that? But of course they dared. It looks like a German Galerie des Glaces. It's horrible. People should never see that.
So if you were to go to the Louvre and focus on one specific painting,
Le Radeau de la Méduse. Le Radeau de la Méduse. I mean, of course, you did a lot of things, but Le Radeau de la Méduse says a lot of things. From a pictorial point of view, from a historical point of view, moral point of view, Le Radeau de la Méduse is something absolutely beautiful.
Okay.
You can go there. You're allowed to go there. If it's to see the Radeau de la Méduse and back. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
A little bit about food, because French is, it's a cliche, but still true.
Oh, yeah.
An address where tourists don't go, but known by locals.
I don't know that, because most of the addresses, I fear to appear a little bit nostalgic, but a lot of the addresses I liked have been closed now and replaced by clothing horrible things. For example, there was a beautiful restaurant where I asked my wife in marriage 31 years ago, Place des Victoires. Place des Victoires. I mean, I hope that the name Place des Victoires will give me luck, which is it, actually. And it was an incredible restaurant, an old restaurant. There are few left. I will tell you two of them, because a lot of these places have disappeared. The first is in front of the radio station RTL, Rue Bayard. It's a restaurant called Savy, S-A-V-Y.
Why?
You will see no foreigner there. And it's a cuisine de brasserie like in the old days, You have absolutely to avoid to go to Lippe or or to the De Magot or to the Café de Flore, where incredible crowds of Japanese and people and veiled women wait to be introduced into the Saint des Saints. I mean, it's absolutely horrible. But try Savy, and also place called Vepler. It's a brasserie on the boulevard on the Place de Clichy, which is the typical French brasserie, like the brasserie Lorraine was. And that is very French. Of course, it's a little bit of the France of Georges Simenon, it's the France of Maigret, it's the France of les tripes à la mode de Caen, la daube, tout ce genre de choses.
Very traditional.
Very
so
traditional.
Say the name again?
Vepler. Vepler, Place Clichy, et Savy, Rue Bayard. Okay, but don't tell me don't tell them I gave you the addresses, because
they're going to become like a Leap and Café Magot.
Exactly, and
the Magot. The French dish you love to order at a restaurant and that you cannot find well made abroad.
There's one, les tripes à la mode de Caen.
Wow.
Which I like a lot. It's a little bit like the ponce de brebis, like the haggis, it's some sort of French haggis. Les tripes à la mode de Caen, extraordinary, with a sauce in Calvados. I can recommend an address for that, and I never saw a service there. It's in the middle of Paris. It's called Pharamond, or La Petite Normande. It's a restaurant that dates back to the beginning of the 19th century, and it was the favorite restaurant of the great French writer Stendhal. And he liked tripes à la mode de Caen also. And it has not changed. It's absolutely impossible to find it everywhere. You can see, you have great cooks, French cooks or non-French cooks doing French cuisine everywhere. Everywhere, in every place of the world. But not the tripes à la mode de Caen. The only way I found something approaching the traditional tripes à la mode de Caen was in Afghanistan, because in northern parts of Afghanistan, in the Panjshir, the peasants do something that looks like the tripes à la mode de Caen, of course, without the Calvados, because they have religious beliefs that I don't like. So, but the tripes à la mode de Caen.
So tripes, I would not even be able to translate.
No, it's internal stuff inside the belly. I mean, it's absolutely horrible.
Better not describe, but try.
No.
Yeah. A period of the French history that you love, and explain why, of course.
The end of the, I very much, of course, now the human rights and Bill of Rights and Republic and French Revolution are part of our tradition. So I like them as being part of our tradition. I have the nostalgia of, but it also throwed us into ideological times, with the opposition of the past and the future, tradition and progress, that is a direct consequence of the French Revolution. And I very much have a nostalgia of times in history ruled by something else than ideology, honor and faith, for example. The end of the 17th century, the time of the Three Musketeers, and with fighting, beliefs, but no general idea of how society could be ruled. I like that.
We come to an end of this conversation, and there is so many other questions that I would like to ask you. But still, would you think about somebody sitting in your seat and speaking about his love for France or his distance for France?
Well, to balance my generally critic attitude toward France and not
positively
critical towards France and the Frenchmen, I would very much recommend to foreigners who live there. I don't know if they would accept. I don't know if one of them at least speaks English, but the one is André Makin, which is my colleague in the Académie Française, great French writer out of Russian origin. Who wrote a beautiful book about France called Le Pays du Lieutenant Schreiber. The guy is a Russian, pure Russian, not sure he even has French nationality, and he's from Siberia, and he won the Goncourt Prize, which is one of our most important literary awards. And he wrote this beautiful book called Le Pays du Lieutenant Schreiber. Le Lieutenant Schreiber is a French officer whose name was Servan Schreiber, and who became a press mogul after the war, but who enlisted and make an absolutely heroic war in the Second World War. Okay, and it's Le Pays du Lieutenant Schreiber. It's what France is. What France is. I mean, Schreiber was a Jew. But he was an officer, and France can be defined as being the country of the Lieutenant Schreiber. This is absolutely beautiful, and the book is absolutely beautiful. And the other one is Sir Michael Edwards, who's a scholar in literature of, I don't know if it's Cambridge or Oxford, who was also a member of the Académie Française, a great specialist of Racine, and who has spent his life between the two countries. So for the first, as for the second, the question would be, how did you manage spiritually and psychologically to spend your life between two countries? You remember the beginning of the Seven Pillars of Wisdom by Thomas Edward Lawrence. Madness is very near to someone who can see the world through two educations, two upbringings, two spiritual beliefs, two backgrounds.
François Sureau, thank you very much for sharing your views with us, and also for playing the game to speak in English. As a French writer, a member of the French Academy, this is not nothing. Thank you very much.
The only thing that people from French Academy don't like is the introducing all the time, speaking globish. I mean, introducing English words into bad written French sentences. But apart from that, English is a beautiful language.
Thank you.
Thank you.